so now we're looking at two-step literal equations. Now, if you're not familiar with literal equations, please see my video, One-Step Literal Equations, and you'll get a little bit more familiar with it. But basically, literal equations are equations with more than one variable. In this case, I actually have a formula here. It's the slope-intercept formula. And we want to solve this equation for x. So as you can see, it has all variables. But what I have here is just a regular two-step equation. And the way you solve literal equations, you perform the same inverse operations, except you're just doing it with letters. So I'm going to mimic both sides, do inverse operations so you can see that when you solve literal equations, you're performing the same operations, okay? So let's get started. So over here, what will we do first to solve for x? Of course, we would add 4 to both sides. I'm adding 4, cancels out, 6 plus 4 is 10, all right? If I want to solve this equation for x, I'm going to do the same inverse operation. So I want to get that x by itself. So since that is a plus b, I'm going to subtract b from both sides. It cancels out over here. But the difference is these are not like terms, so I cannot combine them. So I'm going to simply write this as y minus b. Y minus b. And I'm left with mx. So on this side, I could combine the 6 and the 4 because they are like terms. Here I cannot, but I perform the same operations. All right. So now to solve this equation for x, this is 2 times x. So the inverse of that is multiplication. Division. So I divide both sides by 2 to get my x by itself. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So I divide by whatever's next to my variable that I want to isolate. So the same process here, if I want to solve for x, I read this as m times x. The inverse is division. So to isolate my x, I want to divide both sides by m. Cancels out. Bring down my x. I cannot combine anything, so I simply bring down what I have. Y minus b divided by m equals x. Or if you want to rewrite it with your variable on the left-hand side, we could say x equals y minus b divided by m. Either way, we've solved for our variable with this literal equation or this formula. So we have 2 more problems here, 2 more literal equations. The first one that we have here is for area of a triangle, and we want to solve for the base or solve for b. And this is area equals 1/2 base times height. So I'm just going to rewrite it to give myself a little more space. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of this fraction. All right. I want to move it to the other side. And the way I do that is by multiplying by the reciprocal of 1/2. So the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2/1 or just 2. Either one. All right. And it is going to cancel out on my right hand side. And if I multiply 2/1 times a, I just get 2a/1. But in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that 1 underneath because it's going to have the same value. 2a/1 is the same as just 2a. All right. I'm going to bring down my 2a. And since my 1/2 canceled out on my right hand side, I'm going to bring down the b times h. And again, we read it as b times h. So my inverse is division. So since I want to solve for b, I'm going to divide both sides by h to isolate the b here. H cancels out. I bring down the b. And I'm left with 2a divided by h equals b. So we've solved that for the base. And again, if you want to rewrite it with your variable first, I just flip it. And that's just b equals 2a divided by h. or base equals 2 times my area divided by the height. So we've solved this formula for area of a triangle for the base. All right. So now let's take a look at this one. This isn't a particular formula. It's just a literal equation because it has more than one variable. We want to solve this for y. So same process here. I'm going to rewrite it again to give myself a little more space. All right. So since I want to solve for y, I want to add or subtract first, just like with any other two-step equation. I can actually move this entire 3x to the other side, okay? That 3x is positive because it does not have a negative sign in front. So just like with any other two-step equation, I add or subtract first, then I multiply or divide with most two-step equations. All right, so since this is a positive 3x, I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. Cancels out. Bring down the 7y left on my left-hand side. I'm sorry, I forgot to put that minus 3 there. And I can write this as simply 2 minus 3x. Remember, cannot combine them. They are not like terms. This 3 has an x and this 2 does not. It's a constant. All right. To get the y by itself or to isolate my y, I'm going to divide both sides by 7. Y equals 2 minus 3x divided by 7. All right, and I've solved this literal equation for y.